What is up, everybody? Today on the MGT podcast, we have a very special guest, a fantasy football expert, Smitty, the fantasy football show. Do you want to introduce yourself a little? Or?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me on, guys. Glad you guys are. It's nice seeing a bunch of young guys get together, create a brand, and start doing some brand building. Because, man, you start now. You start diversifying a little bit. Like you said, you're on YouTube as well. Before you know it, 2-3 years down the road, when you guys are ready for college and you're deciding on what majors you want and stuff, maybe it's going to be journalism, maybe it'll be marketing, whatever. You guys should have a nice little brand going. So nice work. I'm Smitty from the Fantasy Football Show. For those that don't know who I am, I've been doing this 16 years. Kind of started in fantasy football radio on CBS Sports Radio. And can you guys hear me okay out of this mic here?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm on the longest running fantasy football radio show in the world. It's been going 23 years. There's no one that has a show longer than that. I've been on it myself 16. So I joined when it was like at 6-7 years, and I haven't left since. So I've done a lot of different things in fantasy football. I've had more than a couple of sites that have been either acquired, and I went and wrote for a bigger company for a while. I recently expanded back out on my own about 3 or so years ago with sleeperu.com, which is where you can find all my written content. And I didn't really build back up my social media presence, my YouTube presence, because you guys, as you know, starting out, it's a daunting task when you're trying to do all these different things. So I really didn't get back into the YouTube game until this like 14 months ago. So I created a new brand, the Fantasy Football Show. So it's only been up for like 14 months on YouTube, only been up for like 14 months on Instagram, and just really been using the experience I have and everything that I've done in radio and with my content stuff, that even though it's only 3 years old, the site, my followers have been following me wherever I go for 16. So I have a huge following on the content side, brand new following, 14 months old on the video and show side of things, which does not translate, I might add. Thousands and thousands of followers on the content side does not translate to video. It's a weird thing. You would think it would, but it's basically 14 months ago I started over. I was doing YouTube videos with no one watching. My grandma, maybe one of you are watching. I don't know, but it's slow moving, and you got to keep grinding. And there's times where you want to give up. But even with the following I had, it's just a different monster doing video, doing podcast. But the truth is, if you guys are wanting to do this, that it's just work. The work will pay off. If you've got something and you do enough of it, it's going to come back and turn into something. So just keep at it, keep trying different things, and you guys will find a niche within a niche, and take off.
Thank you. Everyone just go drop them a follow. Want to say you're at?
Yeah, so the easiest way to find my YouTube show is if you just go to smitty1.com. You could go to youtube.com/the fantasy football show, but I have it redirect from smitty1.com. Just makes it easier. Subscribe to me there. I'm live. I go live on Instagram. You guys probably see me on Instagram go live, I don't know, 2-3 hours a day. And on YouTube, I try and go live. If I don't go live once a day for at least an hour, I'm producing like a post-production video of some kind. So I'm trying to do one, big piece of content per day on YouTube. So you can find me there. And then, of course, Sleeper U, the letter U, like the universityofsleepers.com. That's where you can find me.
All right, sweet. So let's just get right into it. So to start, we have a roundtable. So we're just going to bring up names, and I'm going to give my thoughts, then you're going to give yours, and then we're going to pass it on to these three. Okay. So first up, I know this is your boy, Denzel Mims. His landing spot, in my opinion, wasn't the most ideal. I mean, it is pretty solid spot on the Jets. But what are your thoughts on Denzel Mims this year?
So are we talking dynasty or a redraft or both?
A little of both.
Okay, I'll hit it from all angles then. So out of all the rookie wide receivers, he's probably whether you like this spot or not, whether you like Darnold or not, whether you think he's going to get accurate passes thrown his way, he's probably in the best volume spot for one of these rookies, because the Jets are going to be playing from behind, third and fourth quarter. They're throwing the football a ton. Whether he gets the ball thrown to him accurately or not, that's a whole different thing. But given he has one of the best catch radiuses in the entire, draft class, if not the best, I think that's good for him, because he's going to be able to grab a lot of those errant passes that Darnold might throw his way. So I think by pure volume, pure opportunity, playing from behind a lot, I think he's going to finish as probably the best or second best wide receiver from the rookie class for 2020. Dynasty-wise, I love him, as you mentioned. People that don't know me don't know that, so I'll say that best catch radius, so polished, so aggressive. He plays a lot like DeAndre Hopkins does right now in the NFL in terms of how he can dominate the space around him and dominate defenders and just manhandle people. And you'll have two schools of thought. People are going to say he's going to get called for pass interference on every single play in the NFL because he's so aggressive, or he's going to be like DeAndre Hopkins-ish from the beginning, and of course he's not going to play that well as a rookie or even as a sophomore. These guys take time. The coronavirus situation is going to probably set all these rookies back, and they're not going to have the rookie years that a lot of people, I think, are going to hope for. Maybe Mims will be able to pull off a really good rookie year the whole way through, because they're going to need him more than other teams might need, Chenault in Jacksonville, or, even CeeDee Lamb might get eased in a lot slower than people expect, and some of these running backs especially. So I'd say cautiously optimistic that he can be eventual high-end wide receiver 2 with a lot more upside than that. But in redraft, you can't draft these guys anything but a bench wide receiver, hoping that they get into your wide receiver 3 spot, down the way a little bit.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Personally, I mean, I'm not as high on him as you are, but I definitely see the value there, especially for this year compared to other rookies that are not in such ideal landing spots. I think a Justin Jefferson, he kind of got screwed a little by the landing spot just because Kirk Cousins couldn't really get Diggs the ball, so how's he gonna get Jefferson the ball? But I know Logan here is very high on Denzel Mims, so I'm gonna kick it over to him.
I think Mims is in the best place to succeed out of all rookie wide receivers, personally, over Judy, Lamb, because all those guys already had solid WR ones. But on the Jets, you had Jamison Crowder, who before that had never been the number 1 wide receiver. And even last year, he did okay, but I think that Mims brings a whole new aspect to that offense. I think he's a big body. Like you said, the catch radius is going to be huge. I see him as the best receiver on that team by far, just in my opinion. So I think he gets the targets.
Yeah, for sure.
Sorry.
Either you guys got
anything? Am I good? Yeah. So personally, I just think while New York is a good landing spot for him, just based off the fact that, especially with the departure of Robbie Anderson, there's not a lot of offensive weapons through the air. Receivers from the Jets the past couple seasons have been so streaky. You look at Crowder last year, and he was putting up games with 100 yards, and then the next game he's getting 2 catches. So I think if Mims can, kind of settle into his niche and he can get open a lot, and I think if that's possible, then I think he's going to have a great year. But personally, I love him, but I'm not 100% sold on him, just based off the fact that I don't really trust Sam Darnold as, an upper tier quarterback. And while that could definitely change this year, I'm not sure. We have no idea how anyone's going to perform after this. I don't know. I'm excited to see what happens. And I'm optimistic, but I'm just not sold yet.
Rory, you got anything?
He hit the nail on the head. That's pretty much it.
All right, sweet. So I'm going to move on to one of my personal favorite.
I will say real quickly that, it's the thing about it's either believe in the talent or you don't. And it's understandable. There's so many good rookies in this class. You could easily rank him, 5 or 1. But the one thing I'll say is that I think that Mims, it's going to come down to the fact that I think this guy is just so polished that if you look at AJ Brown, my a lot of my rookie content on the ball dropping at midnight on the first of the year, I'm sitting at home just typing away, getting stuff ready. While that's just the way I live. I live for this stuff. And one of my favorite days of the year is January 1, because I roll all my content over from sleeperu.com to the new season. And it's like, it's loaded with content. So what I do is I break down these rookies coming in for that, April draft. I break down the rookies, and AJ Brown was my number one by far wide receiver coming into last year's January timeframe. And his landing spot, I let influence my ranking, and I dropped him down with caveats, with explanation of, if something happens at quarterback, guys, this guy's going to be the man. And sure enough, talent won, is winning out with that. Situation changed at QB. So whether it's Darnold getting better than we all think, or them figuring something out, I think Mims, like AJ Brown, is capable of creating his own production. Even with a bad quarterback, there are some wide receivers that can do that, some that can't. Like Amari Cooper would be an example of a wide receiver that can't do that. He has to have the right quarterback, or he's completely non-existent from an elite standpoint. Mims feels a lot like AJ Brown, where it's going to happen. He's going to make the people around him better. So that's the last thing I'll leave on Mims, is that I just feel like he's that kind of wide receiver. And I don't know I'm going to make the same mistake this year and not trust my gut on the talent side of it and let the situation determine too much, because he creates his own stuff. But go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, for sure. No, that was a great take on that. But I'm going to move on to one of my favorite receivers in this class, especially in the landing spot. I think that was pretty ideal for him, Brandon Ayuk. I think that spot's pretty good for him. I mean, I don't know how confident I am in Jimmy Garoppolo throwing the ball to Kittle, Debo, and him, because he has games where he barely throws the ball and they just pound the rock a lot. But I think Ayuk's talented enough to make his own, like you were saying, create for himself. And I think he could steal the receiver one spot in San Francisco. What do you think about that?
So here I'm torn on that, because I have a lot of San Francisco 49er followers. I have a ton of them. I have some connections with, I'm not sure how you guys see, but a lot of my videos with a couple 49er pages. So I have a lot of 49er people that I don't want to piss off right now if they see this, but here's the thing. Ayuk is an amazing talent. Ayuk landing in San Francisco is amazing for the 49ers. It's a great football move. He's going to be great on special teams if they decide to use him as a returner. He has the arm span of a 6'6" person. He has as big an arm span by just maybe a fraction of an inch or whatever as Calvin Johnson did, who was 6'5". So he's unbelievable. And so from a football perspective, he's going to help this team win games, and it's a phenomenal draft selection. But as you pointed out, Jimmy G and the Niners don't throw the ball enough, I think, to make him consistent. So will he have big games? Yeah. Could he develop later? Yeah. If something happens at quarterback 2 years from now, 3 years from now, when he's ready anyways to bloom, then that might be, a reason to not react right now to Jimmy G and the way their offense is right now. So I can see if you like him talent-wise. If you feel like I feel about Mims with Ayuk, don't let the situation now determine too much, because he wouldn't, explode as a rookie anyway. But right now, I feel like there's just not enough to go around. Kittle's going to command a ton. Kittle already doesn't get enough as he, you want him to get. You want him to get like 1,200 yards, 12 TDs, and like 90 receptions, but he might not do that because there's just the volume's just not there. And Debo's going to be running, catching, commanding a whole lot of usage. And so as a rookie, I'm not going to be starting him on any leagues in redraft. But Dynasty, I like him. I'm taking him, but there's just a lot of wide receivers that are in better spots.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's actually a good point. I actually really didn't think about the Kittle effect. I mean, I do want him to get as much volume as Kelsey. That'd be amazing. But, even Jimmy G can't get Kittle the ball, so that's probably something I'm going to have to reconsider. Does anyone else want to touch up on Ayuk?
Yeah, I'll go for a second. Like you were talking about earlier, I think that the 49ers passing game is already not the main point of their offense, especially with the emergence of Raheem Mostert. And I think Breida leaving doesn't really have much of an effect on that. And I just think, well, I don't really think the 49ers wide receivers are extremely talented. I mean, I think Debo's going to be successful, but outside of him and Kittle, I don't really see the 49ers being that huge of a passing team. There's not a lot of guys that are going to get targets in the slot. So I think Ayuk could definitely blossom into a nice wide receiver too, and he might even take over that top spot for them. But I just, like we were talking about, I don't really see the volume being there for him to be able to make a huge impact right out of the gate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good point. Next, I'm going to kick it off. I know me and you, Smitty, we're both Darrell Henderson truthers, so I'm going to get right into that. I think Henderson is too talented to lose the spot to Akers. I mean, everyone's going to point out that they drafted him 52nd overall, or it was 51st or 52nd, but that is a high spot, but they had to go running back. I mean, he's the best available guy on the board. But with all this training camp, who knows if they're going to actually have it or not. It might be virtual. I don't see Akers taking over the spot this year, and I think Henderson's good enough to hold it down the whole season and then seasons to follow. You want to just touch up on that?
Yeah. So this is a topic that usually gets you in fights. This is like talking about politics when you talk about Darrell Henderson, especially with Akers involved now. Like, the bottom line is this: the Rams can't be trusted. So I'm gonna lead off with that. Ever since we forgot to use Todd Gurley in the Super Bowl, they've been lying to us about the running back position. So don't believe anything you see here. Nothing. But I have to think that with the departure of Gurley, with like you mentioned, the fact that no one's going to be able to learn and absorb these offenses very quickly from a rookie perspective, or even changing teams perspective, which we could talk about with Rivers and how that could impact Jonathan Taylor. So with Henderson, he's number one in college football history in yards per attempt. I'm getting some kind of feedback, so sorry if I seem distracted. I don't know if it's blaring. Number one in college football in yards per attempt in college football history, like for 60 plus years of stat collection. That's an impressive stat. Yes, he didn't have extremely great competition, but either did Randy Moss, either did a lot of players. So you have to, once you get to that point where you're like, okay, am I going to judge this player off of having a weaker conference or a weaker schedule? You got to look at the other parts of it. If you watch the film on Akers, there's so many glaring weaknesses that come to mind, whether it's crossing his feet, lowering his head literally every time he makes impact with a player, multiple players at a time. And it's not just like, he lowers his head a little weird. He like literally goes like this and rams his head into defenders like every time he can. So that alone concerns the hell out of me, because he's going to be hitting much more athletic players and bigger players, stronger players at the next level. He's not patient at all. He doesn't wait for holes or reads to develop. He just literally, misses stuff all the time. So if you watch the film like detailed and you start looking for those things, you'll see it over and over and over and over. Darrell Henderson has much better film, easier schedule, much better film. We could debate which one's more important, which one you should be weighing more. I get it. That's why there's a debate to be had. But Darrell Henderson has the stats. He had, I believe, 12 50-plus yard runs, more 20 and 40-yard runs than anybody in the nation his final year. He averaged, I think, 8.9 yards per carry, I believe was the stat. I'm kind of trying to remember off the top of my head. That could be off by a few. But I think it was like 8.9 yards per carry. It's just unbelievable, like his stats and what he brought out of college. And the fact that people are willing to write him off with 30 carries, bad situational carries that he got, and just say, Darrell Henderson's awful. Like, that's the reaction you get from most people. Darrell Henderson's awful. Smitty, let it go. Why do you like Darrell Henderson still? Let it go. You're wrong on that. I get probably more hate on that specific thing than anything. And the bottom line is, are you really showing that you're willing to write somebody off after 30 bad carries at the NFL level where the team didn't block well all year? Nobody did well from a yards per carry standpoint. Todd Gurley did get touchdowns, but with the opportunity probably being 50% of the work to begin, Henderson gets to showcase his talent finally I think the talent wins out. And as you said, Akers doesn't have a shot at grabbing a lot of that early on. And they proved what they just proved with Darrell Henderson, I think will be proven with Akers. Drafting a guy doesn't mean anything to the Rams. You know, I think everyone acting like that means something. We were just proven that drafting and going after a running back early in Henderson didn't mean anything. So it's definitely going to be a fun thing to watch unfold. But I'll tell you right now, I'm not 100% sure that I can believe anything they say. Therefore, I'm not confident Henderson will get a fair shake. You know, I don't know that.
I think he's a perfectly capable starting running back, but the way they use him is going to be everything.
Yeah, it's a good point.
For sure. Do we have any Akers truthers in here? No. Logan?
That's good. I like that we don't see. I mean, I don't know if Logan's staying quiet, but do you like Akers, Logan?
I do.
The look on your face was like, I don't want to raise my hand. Go ahead and speak to it, because there are aspects to like about it. Like, I'm not saying that he's for sure a bust.
I just like the kind of runner he is. I mean, just specifically just because, I mean, I haven't seen many of his games, but from what I have seen, he's got a lot of agility, but he's more of like a north and south back. So, I mean, he runs a rock. I mean, he's a really like talented running back. I mean, I see what you're saying about Henderson. I just see, I don't know if you draft a running back that high and then have him sit. I don't know where Henderson went last year. That's what I don't know.
Pretty high. Let me look it up.
It's like the third, I think.
Yeah, it wasn't that big a difference.
Like early third.
Let me find out. Number 70. So
Okay,
we're talking not that far off.
So I mean, I like Akers more like right now, but like if Henderson shows, because I didn't really see much out of Henderson. It's 1 year removed. Everybody forgets about what he did in college, and all of a sudden, you know what I'm saying? So just at the moment, I like Akers because it's more of a fresher memory because we just saw him play. We didn't get to see Darrell Henderson play last year. But once Henderson is fluxed into like the starting role, or if it's 50-50, he might win out. Akers might win out. I'm not sure, but I like Akers right now just a little bit better.
And I can't blame anyone for that. Like, honestly, just the mere argument of the Rams can do whatever they want, and it doesn't mean it's going to be the right decision. That alone means that you could be right on this, like just off that. You know, they might say Akers could suck too. Let's say he is horrible for 5 straight weeks. They could be like, we're starting Akers all year. That's the kind of stuff I expect out of the Rams. So, I mean, look at their logo. Like, they can't make a single good decision anymore. It literally transcends through everything that they do. Their draft was bad. Everyone thinks their draft was bad. I'm not a believer. I'm staying away from the entire situation unless Darrell Henderson, which I think he will, falls to a ridiculously good value in drafts, and I think he will. So that's where I probably will toy around with grabbing Henderson again. I'm not one to like stick to my guns. Like people think that about me. I'll admit my misses, and I'll do a show. It's called an Oopsie and Nailed It show, where I admit what I got wrong. I definitely do it like week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because things will happen like big time in that range where I will have to admit a miss. So I'm not sticking to my guns because I just want to be right about it. I don't care. Like I do enough predictions where this is one thing of thousands that I say. But people hang on to that one thing you miss or might have missed. Like N'Keal Harry, I said is going to be a top 10 wide receiver without question in time. And his start, getting hurt, not being used, everyone and their mother's like, can't believe you missed on N'Keal Harry. Like, admit you're wrong on it. Like, how am I going to admit I'm wrong when the guy got hurt, wasn't used, started to look really good at the end of the year, and my predictions for 3 years out? Why would I give up on my prediction 3 years out after a hurt rookie year? So it's funny what people cling to. Henderson is definitely probably the most clung to thing that I said last year that people keep coming out of the woodwork talking about. So it's a good topic, and I just hope he gets a chance to showcase his amazing breakaway, big play ability, which we can't really find. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I don't know if we're going to talk about him, but him and Darrell Henderson have been the two running backs that have excited me the most coming out of college over the last 3 or 4 years. That weren't like Zeke Elliott or Barkley, obvious, type calls.
Yeah, I've been seeing Henderson like fall to like extreme lows in drafts. Like everyone just kind of gives up on him. It's kind of
Yep.
disappointing. Same thing with even Malcolm Brown. I mean, he's not even getting drafted anymore, and he could be the number
He
two over
could
Akers. Who knows?
he could
I
be the
mean,
number one the way that
exactly.
they operate,
It's
you know.
crazy.
So Higbee could start at running back next year. We don't know.
Yeah.
These Rams will do anything.
Oh yeah. All right. So
I
next
really,
up, I'm going to transition into a well-known wide receiver. I'm high on this guy, Odell Beckham Jr. I mean, it's weird. You see people like fantasy pros. He's ranked ninth for this year, so that would indicate that he should be a top three, uh, first 3 round pick. But I'm seeing him go in the 6th round in many leagues, like almost all of them. So what do you think is fair value for Odell, and what round would he have to drop to for you to consider drafting him?
Great question. Great player to talk about because he has like 3 third round type ability, like in mock drafts where be careful on Fantasy Pros or anywhere, even on mock draft tools, because I think a lot of his last year's value is still kind of weighing that down. And people haven't been mock draft. Some mock draft tools don't even have like until the rookies are in a good, mock draft or a good ADP generator from that data. So I would say that he's more like the 4th round. Um, if I was to guess, like 4th round value, probably in dynasty and redraft across the board. He might fall to the 6th round. I'd take him in the 6th round in a heartbeat. I'd take him in the 5th round in a heartbeat. And Landry's recovering from hip surgery, and as of February, mid-February, something like that, he was projected to be out 6 to 8 months from February. So he's going to be the target hog. The Browns, a lot of people, even though people are very cautiously optimistic, and they'll say it and run away. They'll be like, the Browns could be better, and then they don't want to be tied to that statement. But a lot of people have been saying it and dropping that line left and right on Twitter. I don't support the Browns, but they're probably going to be better this year. I think Baker might be okay, but I'm not drafting. Everyone distanced themselves from the Browns, but I think that there's a real good shot that they turn it around a little bit with different coaching. Stefanski, who created Dalvin Cook essentially last year, or the production you got out of Dalvin Cook last year in Minnesota, is now in Cleveland. They're going to run a lot through the running game. So, but with one wide receiver like Odell there, I think he'll command most of that usage. So even with a dialed back pass, which will be good and make it more efficient, I think Odell's going to eat pretty well. And I think in drafts where I get him in the 4th round, I'm pretty happy across the board, dynasty redraft. So 4th round, 3rd round, probably not. But if I'm like at that turn where my 3rd and 4th are pretty much together, then I feel really good about him at the 4th. Maybe not in every league, but in a couple leagues for sure.
I agree with that. I think the talent's there. I mean, we just need to see the volume. I mean, Austin Hooper, obviously that's a big signing, but does that relieve pressure from like, extra coverage, or is that going to negatively affect them? We don't know that, and we don't know if Baker's gonna, try to go with them because it was the first year. I mean, we can expect a little decline usually when players go to new teams. So we'll have to see if Baker can trust them this year, but I think he will, and I can see Odell sliding into the top 10 this year. That's just me though. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not real excited about Hooper. And like you said, team changing for wide receivers, tight ends, or wide receivers is pretty rough the first year. So I'm not expecting Hooper to hog up a whole lot. I think that Odell's talented enough that if they can get the passing game revived at all, and with the running game just completely dominating, because Stefanski will funnel everything through the running game, it's going to open it up for Odell. People are going to be worried about stopping that run. You're going to see Dalvin Cook type production out of that rushing attack, and that means that Chubb with Hunt in 2020 is gold. If you only have Chubb, I worry, because I think Chubb still has that injury prone label, in my opinion. And he's an aggressive runner. He's abusive to himself. Like, he's definitely the kind of runner that will hurt himself, in time. So if you do draft Chubb, make sure you grab Hunt. And a creative thing is to grab Hunt all by himself. But I think that there'll be enough for Odell to eat. Landry will be recovering kind of all year. I don't know that Landry comes back this year anywhere close to the same form. So I like Odell a lot in that scenario.
Anyone else want to touch up on Odell? Or? All right. So now we're moving on to another rookie.
Excellent. We
This is
love
a
this game.
sleeper that I like, Devin Duvernay. Um, I think that's a ideal landing spot for him, just because the Ravens want like a high, fast-paced offense, and with Willie Snead in the slot, I don't really think they're getting there. With, I mean, Duvernay is much faster, and I think, I mean, Marquise Brown is obviously going to hog the targets a little. With Lamar Jackson scrambling all over the place, making plays, I think Duvernay is going to have a solid season. And I mean, I'd take him late in redraft leagues, but uh, dynasty leagues, he's definitely someone to keep an eye on, in my opinion. What are your thoughts on Duvernay? And do you have a sleeper similar to that?
I like him. There's just so many wide receivers from this draft class. It's hard to it's hard to pick once you get past the big like 5 or 6 guys. I mean, Claypool, Higgins, Pittman, Gandy Golden, Gabriel Davis, Antonio Gibson. Like there are a lot of guys that I feel like have that same kind of, so it's even hard for me to rank them above many of those guys. But I think there's opportunity. Definitely a good situation if he ends up being really, really talented. I guess like taking a stab in, somewhere outside the top 15, which you easily could get him that far, then I say why not? If you feel like if you like his film and you feel like he has a shot to compete with those guys, grab him in one league and hope for the best. But I don't know that I've got him pegged on any one of my rankings as an elite talent. I'll rewatch some footage on it and I'll let you know in a comment or two. To be honest, I haven't watched a ton of video on him lately. I did back in January. But some of the guys that I rewatched, I felt like the second time around, I'm like, why didn't I feel this way about this guy now? There's a couple of those situations. So it wouldn't surprise me. I'll give it a look. But this wide receiver class is so deep. He's one of the deeper guys. He's like in the Gandy Golden range, or Gabriel Davis, or because I think everyone has like Pittman, Claypool, Rager, Higgins, Ruggs, Jefferson, Mims, Judy, Lamb, all above, guys like that. So it's tough. Dynasty hunting is tough. And, even with the running backs, when you get down to like Eno Benjamin or McFarland, like you have to dig pretty deep. And I don't know that there's going to be any gems in there. We'll see.
Yeah, there's always like, twists and turns. Like everyone was high on Ronald Jones and Rashad Penny. They still haven't done much. So, I mean, who knows? Anyone else want to touch up on Duvernay? Go ahead, Logan.
Duvernay. I'm a huge Duvernay fan, like personally, just because. Actually, going back to last year, he broke more tackles than Texas's starting running back. Like he's a bigger dude. Like I think he's 5'11", like 205 if I'm not mistaken. And I like the way he runs and the way mix that with one of the best, like some of the best hands in college, and you have Devin Duvernay. Like he is. I mean, I'm not going to say like he's like the next like all-star receiver or something like that, but like just to keep an eye out on him because of that Ravens offense and how they were a lot of their passes went to tight ends last year. Like Willie Snead didn't do anything last year. Like he was their secondary receiver and he was like almost fantasy irrelevant. At least in the leagues that I was in. But like I think he could take Willie Snead's spot and be that WR2, but I think he's used a lot more than Willie Snead would be because he's a lot more talented than Willie Snead in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm watching some more video on him right now. And, he looks good. I mean, he definitely has the potential of any of those guys that I named. Good at over-the-shoulder catching, strong. Seems to be a good route runner. It's a good awareness. So, I mean, yeah, watching him. But the problem is you watch a guy like Gandy Golden. You watch, and it's almost like I remember in January when I did my rankings and I was trying to slot him and Gandy Golden and all these other guys. You watch one and you're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna put him at number 7, and then you watch the next grip of film and you're like, no way, I gotta put him number 7. Then you watch the next piece of film, you're like, crap, I gotta put him. And before you know it, you've bumped the guy that you felt like was locked into your 6 or 7 down to like 13, and you're like, holy crap, this wide receiver class is so deep. So it's interesting. It'll be interesting. He definitely looks good. There's some raw pieces to his game, which is why he's not ranked 3 or 4 or 5, but definitely has some massive upside with that offense. And if he gets volume, he's going to develop. So kind of reminds me of, if I'm watching him, he's tough to comp. I'd say like, let's see here. I'm going to watch a couple other plays. Maybe I'd say like Anquan Bolden or what do you guys think? What would you say a comp would be for him, Logan?
It's kind of hard. I think I'd compare him to like, I mean, I don't even know receiver. He's got a running back body. I just looked it up. So it's 5'10", 200 pounds. So, I mean, that's like running back size, maybe a little bit bigger than a running back, but I wouldn't be able to, he kind of isn't the wide receiver mole. You know what I'm saying? Like he's not huge, but at the same time, like I think he does well against like the secondary and stuff like that. So
yeah. It doesn't look like a burner. It doesn't look like it looks a little raw, like a running back type frame. So those don't always translate well, but Baltimore's a unique situation that needs, people to step up. So it could happen. It's a good topic.
I might compare him to do you know Mike Thomas? Or do you know Mike Thomas is? I think that's probably like my best comparison from what I've seen. I mean, obviously he wasn't like a Pro Bowler or anything, but just like size wise.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good topic. We'll see what happens. He's in a good spot. So if the talent's there, he'll climb up.
Yeah, for sure. Liam and Rory, do you guys have anything on Duvernay?
I just think, especially with so much talent in that backfield, it's going to be tough for him to get a lot of volume. But like we were saying earlier, how their number 2 receiver is at the moment Willie Snead, and Willie Snead hasn't really translated to much success in Baltimore at all. So while I don't feel like it would be too difficult for him to take over the wide receiver 2 role, I feel like so much of the passing game goes to the tight ends. You have Mark Andrews, who's, in my opinion, one of the top 5, top 6 tight ends in the league. And I just feel like there's so much talent in that backfield. I mean, you've got Ingram and Gus Edwards and Dobbins and Lamar Jackson. That's absurd. And I don't know. I'm not huge on his volume right out of the gate. If he starts to prove himself and maybe starts taking some targets away from Marquise Brown or some of the tight ends, I feel like he could have, a pretty big impact. But I just don't know about right away if he's going to have a huge impact. I think he's a redraft, in my opinion.
I will say that Hollywood Brown is going to have a huge year, and I think he could be a really, really big breakout wide receiver. I'm not talking about like, he's going to be a really good. I think he could flirt with wide receiver 1 value here and there. You just don't want to draft him there because you don't have to. You can take Brown at like, I want to say 6th, 7th round. You what?
I said everyone just agreed with you when you said that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's fine. That's commonplace for me. So for Hollywood, he's got size issues. Like you could say he's too small, but the guy is so quick. He's literally the number 1 wide receiver, and I don't think that's going to change. Duvernay or anybody is going to take that from him for 2020, 2021. It's going to take anybody time to develop at the next level, unless they draft a really big name wide receiver next year that could develop quicker. But he's the number 1. He's super quick. He's playing in an NFL where his skill set translates and makes him really hard to guard. And if he can learn how to take less hits and just kind of do what Antonio Brown did for so many years and figure out ways to get open with and avoid contact when you can, I think he's going to be fine. I think he's going to stay relatively healthy, and I think he could flirt. You draft him in 6th, 7th, 8th round territory. So I'm not saying invest anything high at all, but he could be that guy that you're like on your team looking later on, like, oh my God, how did people miss this guy breaking out and having such a big year? What are the reasons you guys don't like him?
Oh no, we all liked them.
You all liked him. Okay. I thought you said that you disagreed.
Yeah. When you said that he was going to be a wide receiver 1 category, everyone nodded that yeah.
Okay, I thought you were saying that you disagreed. I was saying that's par for the course for me.
I think it's hard not to be up on him.
Yeah, size is the only thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see him as like a future top 10 receiver many years to come. Did
you guys see the video footage of him working out with like Antonio Brown and just working out on his footwork right now, like while everybody else is kind of like, you see players get interviewed right now and they're like, yeah, they're on NFL.com's Instagram, video. It's so boring too. They're the worst interviews. I feel like somebody has to take over that NFL.com Instagram account and do some live videos instead of this, hey, what's your favorite puzzle, or like, it's the worst content ever. But they interview some of these players and they're like, yeah, I've been sleeping in, and I get a workout, I try and get out of the house and run or do something. Like, people are not doing what they need to do. This is going to be the year of the injury for the NFL players. And but you see footage of Hollywood Brown working on his footwork, and the dude's feet are just insane. His quickness is insane. I don't care how small he is. You won't be able to guard this guy one-on-one. He's going to be so slippery across the middle of the field that he'll be the guy catching that wide open 15-yard slant where no one's around him. And yes, then he's got to worry about getting leveled or making sure he doesn't continue to take abuse over the middle. But he's that guy that's going to be completely wide open given the rules of the NFL today, that you can't touch after so many yards. That this guy is going to be impossible to contain, hold, and he's going to create his own space. So I'm so excited for him. I've drafted him in a ton of leagues, and a lot of people hate on him. So it's going to be kind of a fun year if he does well.
Exactly. Now to switch gears into running backs, the draft brought a lot of unexpected landing spots, and we had guys that everyone seemed to have written off, like Matt Breida, Jordan Howard, Keyshawn Vaughn, and Ronald Jones slide into pretty interesting what I'm looking for, interesting places. Who do you think is going to win over the Miami backfield and the Buccaneers backfield, or do you see a timeshare in both?
The Buccaneers backfield, it's going to be Vaughn. I think there's just too much opportunity there for him and not a lot of competition. As I mentioned earlier, and we've all kind of touched on it, that this is going to be a strange year for rookies. There's definitely a potential for all these rookies to start slow. And, just if players' reactions are, I get outside once a day, or no one's working out and absorbing anything right now. I know that they're doing virtual meetings. I realize in the next month or so, they're going to change that ramp up, and you're going to see a lot of these rookies get more exposure, but it's nothing close to what they would have got had this been a normal offseason. And if we don't have a preseason, coaches are just going to, by default, be like, I'm not using a rookie in week one when they don't know everything and get my quarterback leveled because they don't know how to pass protect and this and that. So would it surprise me if Ronald Jones or whoever gets all the work week 1, 2, 3, and Vaughn doesn't get going till week 6? No, it wouldn't shock me at all. But I think ultimately, if I'm drafting anybody, it's him, with the patience that he'll eventually become the starter, versus getting any early work that I don't even need yet. Because who's starting Ronald Jones on their fantasy team? Your team's screwed if that's what you're actually leaning on. So with that type of draft selection, I'm making it a future 2020 move, not a now move. I don't care who's the starter now. I'm not using that starter now. I want, when I hit an injury and Derrick Henry goes down or something, I want the guy who's going to be the starter in week 6, 7, 8. Give me Vaughn. Miami, who the hell knows, man? I'm staying away from that running back position, plain and simple. I'm glad that Jonathan Taylor didn't land there. I'm glad J.K. Dobbins didn't land there. I'm glad Hilaire didn't land there. That feels like a kiss of death for running back. So, and I kind of feel the same way about Detroit. And I know a lot of people that love Swift just kind of force themselves to accept that role and saying Swift's good, he's going to do well. But objectively, if J.K. Dobbins landed there, I'd be cautiously optimistic, and I love J.K. Dobbins. So I don't like Detroit. I don't like Miami. What do you guys think about the Miami situation?
I think Jordan Howard's going to take it. I was a big Jordan Howard believer before they started using Tariq Cohen way too much in Chicago. He posted 2,000-yard seasons to start his career. I think he's still pretty talented. I think we all writ him off, considered him irrelevant, but I think he's just going to take it. That's just based on no stats at all. That's just a hunch, in my opinion. But, yeah, I'm just going with Howard there. Does
He's a
anyone
little
think?
one-dimensional for me, and that's probably one reason why I'm staying away, because he's in a limiting situation that's proven to fail running backs. I don't blame you. Like, if you're taking a guy, he probably sounds like the most logical choice, obviously. But I just don't understand why Miami didn't make a move for a running back. I don't know. What do you
Yeah,
got? What the rest of you guys think about that?
Before Brito was there,
Like,
yeah, I was
no,
gonna say
you're good. Go ahead.
before Brito was there, in mocks that I did before the draft, he was going in like 10th or 11th round. So like I had snagged him, or 9th or 10th. So I had snagged him in the 9th or 10th round, and I'm happy with that. But now that Brito's there, I I don't trust him as much. But going into the draft, I was really high on Howard, and I hope that they use Howard, and I hope that Howard like proved himself there, because I saw what he could do in Chicago, and I really liked when he was the starter in Chicago. But and then he
Yeah.
went to the Eagles, and obviously that was just a mess. I mean, he wasn't really reliable at all. Injuries, Miles Sanders, all that. But now I think he's back on a team that could utilize him and does run, like, doesn't use running backs at all, like for fantasy at all. They're irrelevant when they go to Miami, but they might be able to make something out of Howard. And I'm kind of hoping for that.
Anything's possible, man. And Fitzpatrick stays healthy, then they're a little bit more dynamic right now. And I worry about Parker, because Parker vanishes once something happens to his quarterback. So he's kind of dependent on Fitzpatrick, I think, for at least right now.
You got anything on
Yeah, I would agree with Matt Breida kind of, in my opinion, taking the number one role in that backfield, but I don't really feel like he's going to hold that much value personally. Just have absolutely zero trust in the Miami offense whatsoever. I mean, just looking last year how they handled Kenyon Drake. I mean, he went to an offense that wasn't necessarily, as bad as the Dolphins were, but it's not like he was going to a place where he was instantly going to succeed, and he absolutely excelled there. And just a comparison between how he played on the Cardinals and how he played on the Dolphins was so obvious. And then the entire second half of the season, the Dolphins had absolutely no running game whatsoever. And the quarterback situation is going to be interesting, and I feel like that's going to dictate how a lot of the touches around the rest of the offense gets distributed. Because I think they do have some talented weapons, but I just don't know if they use them efficiently.
Yeah, I'm just staying away from Lamar Miller to Drake to, just proven misuse of the running back position. And again, Detroit feels a lot like that. So I'm staying clear of both.
All right, so now to transition into another draft kind of topic, wide receivers that were many people's sleepers got affected by the draft. Where do you stand on Hunter Renfrow and Deontay Johnson post-draft?
I feel like I draft bigger name players than that at my wide receiver spot. Like, even if I'm going cheaper, I find like I'm not using those guys. Like, in the deepest of dynasty leagues, would I pick them up? Yeah. And Deontay has some upside, and I recognize that, and I definitely would take him in the right spot in the dynasty league, but I just don't envision starting those guys yet. Deontay could prove me wrong, and he's definitely capable, but I don't know that I'm trusting, Juju yet. And I want to, because Juju's going to be potentially the biggest bounce back candidate we've had in a long time in fantasy football. But I don't think I'm ready to trust him and Deontay, or to any degree that I'm like starting Deontay or leaning on him. But I would trust Deontay more than I would Renfrow. But they're not big on my radar, either one of them.
That's definitely fair. I know the Raiders' receiving corps is kind of a mess. I mean, they have Williams, Aguilar, Renfrow. Then they just drafted Bowden and Edwards back to back. But I'm still pretty confident in Renfrow as last round. That's where I've been getting them, because I've been experimenting with taking a defense before everyone, and then a kicker, and then Hunter Renfrow last round, the last 3 rounds of the draft. But I don't know. A lot of people are high on Edwards. I'm not really seeing that. I think it's too much of a mess there. Hopefully, Derek Carr can have a bounce back season. And then as far as Deontay Johnson goes, I'm pretty high on him in general, but I mean, I think Claypool's going to affect James Washington more than him just because they play the same position. I mean, I think James Washington might fall off the map a little, but I don't see Deontay Johnson really doing that. What do you guys think about that?
Can I?
Good take. I disagree entirely with that take.
Yeah, horrible.
Just we can't hear you, but
Your take on it first.
All right, do you have your take?
I mean, sorry I cut out, but I see Claypool as the number 2 receiver in that offense. I just like him more than Johnson. Overall, he won't be used as much as Johnson. I think just with the whole like rookies maybe not being used as much because of the whole Corona thing or whatever, but talent wise, I think he's the number 2 receiver in that offense. Maybe even the number 1 tight end in that offense.
He's a big body.
Yeah, so
he's easy to find.
He openly said that he's willing to make the switch, and I think that if he works on his blocking, he becomes the number 1 tight end in that offense, and I think he's utilized a lot more than Vance McDonald is because, I mean, let's face it, Vance McDonald's more of a blocking tight end than he is. I mean, a receiving tight end. He's not a bad receiving tight end. It's just not a good offense for a receiving tight end. I mean, but I think if Claypool stays at wide receiver, he becomes the number 2 wide receiver by next year, maybe even late this year. Or if he switches to tight end, he could become the number 1 tight end by next year. So I like Claypool.
I like Claypool.
You like him
I'm
over?
personally not huge on Claypool as much as I am Johnson. Just based off the fact that, Johnson is showing, the second half of the year that he can produce. And I like Claypool's build a lot, but like you said, I feel like he'd be a lot more efficient and effective as a tight end rather than a wide receiver. And going back to your point about receiving and blocking tight ends, I don't think that the Steelers' offense has really ever had a dominant receiving tight end succeed in their offense. I mean, you go back even to Heath Miller, and it's always been just an offense that doesn't rely heavily on tight end targets.
I think he's more dangerous too as a wide receiver because if you can keep a blocking tight end in the game with him also on the field. And my liking Claypool more than Deontay isn't that I think Claypool can reach, even wide receiver 3 numbers in fantasy, but I feel like he just helps that team a ton, which will help Juju see more single coverage and just help like Big Ben, I think, get back to work, having this big body that's really easy to locate, find, that can go up and get a football. And so I think Claypool is the kind of guy that's going to have like 6 TDs and like lower yardage than you would want out of a typical guy that you were counting on as a rookie. So he's just the kind of guy who could absorb touchdowns and just kind of make that offense more dynamic. But will Deontay probably score more than him? Absolutely, as a rookie. I just don't know that I think there's enough to go around to make Deontay crazy good. But what if Juju goes down or something, then Deontay, I think, would have a great opportunity. So he's got upside for sure.
I agree. And then lastly, the last topic of the roundtable, who is everyone's pick for the best handcuff, pure handcuff, like no timeshare or anything for this season?
I think it's still Madison. Just personally, I don't really think there's a question. Or Madison or Pollard, really.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, I don't even think I need to explain. I mean, we've seen how both their offenses run. I mean, both their offenses run heavily. I don't know how the Vikings are going to be with the new coordinator. I'm pretty sure they have a new offensive coordinator because Stefanski went to the Browns, but that's interesting to see. But I still think that those 2 handcuffs are probably tied for first, Pollard and Madison.
Yeah, I mean, both of them are going to be in huge places to succeed. I like Pollard especially. The Vikings are going to be interesting because, like you said, they brought in a new coordinator, and Stephon Diggs is gone. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how Dalvin Cook is used in that offense now. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be an interesting season for sure for them.
Yeah, does anyone have any pick other than Madison?
I think Kareem Hunt's my number 1 cuff, but also he does have that standalone value. So I know that you guys were saying basically cuffs, but he's the kind of guy that wins you a league if you can get him. And people are taking him sometimes as early as round 6. I think end of round 6 is something I'd toy around with, but I more so find a way to trade my 8th and 7th rounder together completely, just 2 for 1 to get another high 6th round and then take Hunt without affecting any of my top 6 picks. So I still have my 6th round as normal. I think 7th and 8th round are huge drop-offs. Like you can get players at round 10 and 11 that you like as much as guys you get in round 7 and 8. So it's a great little one trade move, trading 7 and 8 for 6, taking Kareem Hunt, even if you don't own Chubb, and winning your league if he gets into that offense and getting flex type value right away. Anyway, Madison to me is the number one, like you could almost flex him too in some deep leagues, but I think he wins the league if he gets in there. He's a top 5 to 7 running back if he's starting for Minnesota, and Cook is not the definition of staying healthy. So that's a good cuff. And then Pollard, I think, is definitely the next one. So he'd be my third. So it'd be Hunt, Madison, then Pollard. People drafted Pollard in the 3rd round last year when they thought Zeke Elliott might only hold out 4 or 5, maybe 6 games, 7 games, and people still were diving into a 3rd round ADP. That's how much they loved him in that offense. That's how good he looked. And people are going to forget really quickly and be soured on that whole situation because people invested high draft capital in early drafts on Pollard and got burned. So I think a lot of people still might stay away from him. You can get Pollard really, really cheap, but I think you reach at least a round more than you have to for Pollard in any draft. Even if you don't own Zeke, if you own Zeke, you have to get him. He could win you a league if he gets into that lineup. So I think those are really 3 really, really good players. I think Edmonds is kind of an interesting one later in your draft. If you own Drake, you have to take Edmonds. He was a monster. He had 3 TDs in the game that they used him, and then he got hurt, and then Drake came in, and they traded for Drake, and Drake went nuts. So in that offense, whoever's starting is going to be a top 10 running back without question. If it's Edmonds, Edmonds will be. If it's Benjamin, the rookie out of Arizona State University, he'll be a top 10 running back. That offense is designed to produce somebody that's going to be elite. So I think Edmonds is also another good one.
What do you think about the Green Bay backfield if Aaron Jones goes out? Because I've heard people saying that Jamal Williams or AJ Dillon. I just don't know what.
That good thing you brought that up, because that would be like the 4th or 5th name,
Yeah.
AJ Dillon. AJ Dillon, Green Bay. Here's the thing: Green Bay, every chance they get, they shoot down the idea of keeping Aaron Jones in the workhorse role. You ask that coaching staff, after last year, are you comfortable with Aaron Jones being your full-time guy? And it's always no, or we're going to bring somebody else in. So I don't know what's going on in practice, or his lack of being prepared and being lazy in the off seasons of the past, I think have translated into the doubt that team has for him in general or something. I don't know. He was on my top 6 bold predictions for 2020 to break out last year. So I landed him big time. And the only reason I felt comfortable with that, because the talent's always been there, but he's been lazy, he's had bad off seasons, is he came in absolutely ripped. New off season program, completely took everything seriously. He was completely ripped from neck down, just chiseled. And I thought, you know what, if he's going to stay healthy, this is the year that it's going to happen. And sure enough, he had one of the biggest years he's ever had. So the biggest year he's ever had. He had 19 touchdowns. That's insane. But after 19 touchdowns, the offense is still going to lean on another running back for touchdowns in goal line situations because they got A.J. Dillon. And this guy could have 8 TDs as a rookie, and if he gets in there, he's going to be a good player for people to plug into their flex or running back 2 spot. So he's absolutely one of the best handcuffs to have, a must own for Aaron Jones owners, and a great player to just like in crafty fashion draft him and put him on your bench even if you don't own Aaron Jones. So I like that, and I'm scared for Aaron Jones owners that don't own A.J. Dillon.
Do you think Jamal Williams is out the door? Do you think fantasy value is just gone, or
anything can happen, man? And with this again, AJ, we've seen it time and time again. Look at N'Keal Harry. So much upside. I was so amped about him. Kept getting hurt, and then before you know it, he's on IR or they're not using him. He's not even going to suit up. that could happen at any moment for any of these rookies. So if A.J. Dillon, because he's such a big dude, he's bigger than Derrick Henry, believe it or not. He's such a big dude that if he gets banged up in the there's going to be no preseason, but just early on before the season starts, they're not going to turn to him and say, hey, why don't you here's 10 carries. They're not going to give him that kind of work. So it's going to be on the shoulders of Jamal to back up Aaron Jones. So anything can happen. I wouldn't say he's out, but I think that if everything goes well for A.J. Dillon, he's going to be the guy that just vultures everything at the end of the year. And if Aaron Jones gets hurt, who's a very injury-prone player, and back to my concern of him staying focused and working out and being fit and taking everything seriously, is this the right environment for an Aaron Jones to do that? I don't think so. We're not in a place of oversight right now for these players. I think if there's going to, and we don't know, maybe reports come out that he's completely in the best shape, but better shape than last year, then I'm going to change my tune a little bit. But I'm kind of expecting him not to be in the same spot he was last year, probably leaning more toward the previous years of being lazy and not having the right oversight to keep completely in pristine physical condition. And this might be why the Packers always struggle with counting on him. He hasn't been reliable year over year. And so I'm kind of staying away from Aaron Jones. If he fell to like third round value, which he has fallen to at times, then I cuff him to A.J. Dillon. I feel good. But I don't feel great about taking Aaron Jones and Aaron Jones alone in 2020. I just feel like it has bust written all over it.
Rory, you got any good handcuffs for this year?
I don't know. I was thinking I honestly don't know.
It's fair. All right, so now we're going to transition into a little either or. This first one, both your guys right here, Kenyon Drake or Austin Eckler?
My fantasy football trade calculator on Sleeper U says, and I know this because I create the formula and I'm constantly working with the numbers on it. They're both at a dead even dollar value for me in the calculator. And that means that if I'm in let's say the 13th spot or 14th spot in two drafts simultaneously, I'm taking one in one and one in the other to kind of mix it up. So if I had to pick one over the other, and it's PPR, God, that's a tough one. I'd probably say Drake right now. I'm real excited about Drake. And if you can back him up, I think you're more protected than if Justin Jackson has to take over. I don't think you're getting the same production you get out of whatever running backs backing up Drake right now. Edmonds, I think Edmonds would do well. So I'm going to go Drake.
In my opinion, I think it's going to be Austin Eckler because the Cardinals just got DeAndre Hopkins, so that's going to take a lot of plays away from the running backs. I'm not at all doubting Kenyon Drake,
Right.
but with Melvin Gordon gone, I think Eckler's the guy.
Yeah, he definitely do good. I think the only concern you have with Eckler, and I'm obviously not that concerned. He's one of my favorite. I'm taking him earlier than almost anybody because a lot of people like to take him in the 15 to 18 range. I'm taking him at 12. I'm taking him at 13 all the time. I'll take Drake and Eckler back to back at 12 and 13, which is high for a lot of people. But I love both those running backs. The only concern you have is Rivers gone. Rivers was like Ben and Roethlisberger to Antonio Brown, just complete laser locking. I don't know that you're going to get the same receiving production, but you're going to get an uptick in rushing attempts and rushing production that should wash any kind of negative impact that Rivers leaving has on Eckler's receiving game. So I still love Eckler, but you have a lot of change going on for him. So that could be the one red flag. Whereas the Cardinals, I get what you're saying about DeAndre Hopkins, but I think that the way that they spread their offense out, and the way that they're going to throw to Drake this year, he's going to be heavily involved in the passing game too. And the fact that we saw Drake be so like one of, if not the most productive running backs to end the year, he's coming off on a hot streak. Let me pull up his stats, but it was something crazy. You can't use this kind of math. It's really dumb to even almost say it. But if you extrapolate like his last 3 games, it was something like 1,900 yards and like 30 something touchdowns the way he was finishing. But that should tell you that, they're going to be using him a ton. It was In week 15, he had 4 TDs and 166 rushing. And in week 16, he had 166 and 2 TDs rushing. And they didn't even get him going in the receiving game yet, to the degree I think they will this year. So totally can't argue with you. I love Beckler. So I like both.
You're right. It's pretty much a dead even tie. So
yeah, it's hard to argue.
Yeah, I've been trying to experiment with that's kind of your strategy, taking both Drake and Eckler. And in the mocks I've done, that's worked out very well. So that's probably the strategy I'm going with this year. That's a great strategy. Next, we're going to go on to Clyde Edwards-Helaire or Leonard Fournette.
Oh, God. You can't come up with a better – that's easy. I would do – yeah, Fournette is one of my biggest stay away from players. The team wants to get rid of him. They've been wanting to get rid of him for quite a while. They've cut ties with him before, giving him one more chance. Now they want to get rid of him again. He's clearly a locker room problem. He clearly makes bad decisions on and off the field. He's a very injury-prone player. They won't be throwing to the running back the same way this year with all the changes going on there in 2020. Just a clear bunch of red flags all at once hitting you. Clyde Edwards-Helaire could start off slow. As I've mentioned, the theme here with these rookies, everybody could start off slow. Maybe he gets 2 carries in week 1 and maybe he gets 4 carries in week 2. You have to have patience with him. You have to have a backup plan for the early weeks if they do ease him in. The GM said they're going to do a rotation, but the GM isn't going to make all those calls. Patrick Mahomes was called up and asked, "Hey, Patty, who do you want with this pick?" And Pat said Clyde, and that's it. And Reed was drooling over his film and footage when somebody had brought his name and film to him, and he watched it, and he said he was just, blown away. Joe Burrow said Clyde Edwards-Helaire is the best player he's ever played with, and Joe Burrow has played with probably the longest list of elite players I've ever seen in my life, given Joe Burrow's experience and where he's played. Only one elite season, but I mean where he's played football. He played with both Bosa brothers. He played with Mike Thomas. He played with Chase Young. And all these players in this draft class, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is burned and dominated because he had one of the toughest schedules or toughest competition that you could find for any of these running backs in this 2020 draft class. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is the next Maurice Jones-Drew to me. I think it's so evident the writing's on the wall. Injury could take that prediction and just squash it. Injury can wipe out anybody at any time. So I'm hoping he stays healthy. But this guy's ability to stay low center of gravity and balanced when he takes a hit is Maurice Jones-Drew-like. There's just nobody in football you could think of other than MJD that was compact, low center of gravity, unable to really be knocked over. And with the micro movements that Clyde Edwards-Helaire does, and still goes north and south, but north mainly, with those micro movements, these guys just roll off him, just completely roll off him, don't knock him over. They can't tackle him. They can't grab him. His patience and ability to hit a hole and read a defense and get better as the game goes on. He doesn't break down. Joe Burrow constantly said that, he could trust him and hand the ball to him when it mattered and when defensives were getting tired. Clyde Edwards-Helaire was just getting going. The most important thing I'd say with Clyde Edwards-Helaire is if you doubt him at all, rewatch a lot of the video footage, because even going back after he got drafted by the Chiefs, I loved him a lot. But even going back and watching more of it, the more you watch, the more you see things, just like in a movie that you watch over and over again. And the detailed things that this guy does that other players don't, like Cam Akers, and not being patient, not waiting for a hole to develop, not reading a defense properly, not pressing the hole properly. Edwards-Helaire does all of these things. And if anybody's going to rip on his breakaway speed or whatever, that's crazy, because he's plenty fast and he's so quick laterally that he's going to average over 6 yards a carry that's the type of seasons this guy's going to give you, like Jamal Charles, these players in the past that had these crazy yards per carry seasons. That's Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And he couldn't have been drafted into a better offense, an offense that's going to fit his game perfectly. And even with a slow start, Clyde Edwards-Helaire will sleepwalk into 55, 60 receptions as a rookie, in my opinion. And that protects him in PPR into a second-round value no matter what. So I'm drafting that guy at every turn. Fournette, I'm staying clear of. Sorry about the long-winded answer, but you hit on a topic that I'm excited about. Give me Clyde Edwards-Helaire all day long.
Oh yeah, he's gonna be a stud. Next one, Sony Michel or James White?
I guess White. Neither. I don't think I find myself in that position. So I'm going to go ahead and say White, but Michelle worries me with his knees. I think those issues will start to rise up. He was like near bone on bone in one of his knees, according to one report coming out of the draft, which is why a lot of people were worried about him and avoided taking him and kind of wrote him off their board entirely. There were a few teams that did. So that stuff doesn't get better. And I think that I'm just staying away from both.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. Next one, David Montgomery or Devin Singletary?
That's a good one. Both sophomores kind of, one was misused all year. The other one came on late, didn't get used early on. And Singletary, I'd probably say Singletary. I think I can't trust David Montgomery's situation. I like David Montgomery a lot. I think that if he was used properly, he'd be a top 10 running back in the NFL. I have no doubt about that. I don't think I was wrong in assessing his talent. I think where I went wrong, and a lot of us went wrong in the fantasy football industry, because everybody liked this guy pretty much and ranked him really high. Where I went wrong personally was same thing that got me trapped in the Rams situation, not evaluating what the team was going to do and how the team would likely treat the situation. And I figured because they went and got him, because they used him a little bit in the offseason or in the preseason, and he looked good, that they knew what they had. Boy, was I mistaken. And I don't think you're going to be able to put me in a position where I'm going to want to feel like they tricked me again. And for that reason alone, I'm going Singletary. And I think Singletary is going to stay protected into that PPR production no matter what happens at the running back position. So I know a lot of people are freaked out about his carries and workload potentially taking a hit with the addition of Moss. But I think that Singletary is going to be protected in PPR. You don't want him running for 12, 13, 1,400 yards at his frame. You want him in an Alvin Kamara 800 and 800 or 800 and 900 role. Could he get 7 or 8, 9 TDs? Probably. Could he get 60 receptions, 70 receptions? He could. And so there's enough running to go around on any team to give a guy like Singletary 800 yards and not be worried about workload or usage. So I like Singletary.
Yeah, that's definitely a good pick. I know Logan loves Singletary this year.
Before they drafted Zach Moss, I had him as a fringe top 10 running back.
And now with Moss, where do you have him? When you unfreeze, you can answer. He's so excited he froze. Okay, maybe he'll come back. Are you there,
I'm
Logan? Okay, go ahead. The last thing we heard was you had him in the top 10.
I had him as a fringe. I had him at maybe like 11 or 10, like interchangeable with a couple other people. I just really liked him in the fact that they did so well. If you go back and watch their 2 best games last year, they utilized the screen game very well in those games, and they utilized the run game very well in those games. And that was the Ravens game and the Texans game that they eventually ended up blowing. But they played very well in both those games. In both those games, Devin Singletary had, I think 15 plus. I think he had 18 in one and 19 in the other, I want to say, for fantasy points. And I think those were his highest games all year. I want to say that's what they were. But I think they revert to that offense.
Logan, you stopped working there, bud.
You get that.
All right, hit me with 1 or 2 more questions, then I probably got to jump.
All right. Raheem Mostert or Mark Ingram?
Ingram. I like Mostert a lot. There's definitely upside there. I wouldn't blame anybody for wanting Mostert. I just don't know that I really feel the 49ers for sure will use one running back. They run a lot. They might rotate. Somebody might get hot, and then they, stick to Coleman or whatever. I think Ingram is I think J.K. Dobbins is the future, but Ingram's not going anywhere. He's a leader. They trust him. And I think him and Lamar have good rapport. Ingram's going to have a good year for as long as he's healthy. So I'm going to go Ingram.
All right. And then this report came out yesterday. The Chiefs coach said that Damian Williams would begin the season as the starter and Clyde would have a chance to compete. Are you buying or selling that? Personally, I'm going to sell that. I don't think that's ridiculous. I don't think that Williams would start over Edwards, Hilaire, but could you see Damian Williams starting week 1?
I mean, yeah, because I understand what you're saying. I think the point you're making is more along the lines of like, do they feel he's their top back now that they've drafted Edwards? And I think you're right. That's ridiculous to think they drafted a running back in the first round, which Andy Reid doesn't do. This is the guy that Mahomes wants behind him in the backfield. So it's going to happen. The transition will happen. But as I mentioned, throughout this whole interview, these rookies might be eased in. So what's starting mean? Yes, could Damian Williams start? Sure. Could he get more carries? Maybe. Probably not that unlikely if there's a modified offseason all the way to week 1. If the rookies can get in there and get some work done, if Damian doesn't get banged up, like there's a lot of things that could happen. If Damian's not banged up, if Hilaire's not banged up, and the offseason is still like very modified and there's no preseason, let's say, there's a real good shot Damian Williams starts week 1. And they're going to sprinkle Hilaire in. But even on 14 games, let's say Clyde Edwards-Hilaire isn't used properly for weeks 1 and 2, and then they start easing him in really well in 3, he can still break off one play for like 55 yards, and he can still be productive. So in the leagues where I have him, is he locked into my lineup in week 1? Maybe not. I kind of got to see what they're going to do, but it's not crazy to think that they'll start Damian, but that doesn't mean anything big picture wise. I think everyone's freaking out about that. I hope it lowers Clyde Edwards-Hilaire's value in a redraft. Probably won't touch it in dynasty, but I hope it affects it in redraft, because in redraft right now, there was talk about having to pay a 15 to 22 overall pick for him in redraft. Now with that news, which I think we should all go out after this and spread it around and get that Damian Williams is going to start week 1 content out there, and see if we can drive Edwards-Hilaire into like the late 3rd round. That would be what my preference.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I mean, I've been looking to take him to a few of my mocks, but unfortunately he's going way too early. But I mean, hopefully that drives his value down a little. But yeah, anyways, it was awesome to have you on. It's a pleasure having you. Everyone go check out his content. You want to say the ats one more time for anyone?
Yeah, just go to sleeperu.com. Can you guys see this in the screen? I don't know how tight you have the actual shot, but sleeperu okay, good. letteru.com. You guys email me. I'll hook you up with subscriptions so you can check it out. Sleeperu.com, thefantasyfootballshow.com, which you can also get to just going to smitty1.com. And then on Instagram, I'm the same handle as I am on YouTube, the Fantasy Football Show. So I produce a lot of, I'd say my 2 biggest platforms by far are Instagram and YouTube in terms of social media. I create kind of different, but the same kind of feel, but in different styles. Like my Instagram's more like humor based, a little bit more aggressive, like I'll get on there and scream at people, and I do an Ask Smitty segment where people ask me a question, and if it's a dumb question, I let them know it's dumb. YouTube, I'm a little more polite, but it's still kind of edgy content, but both are very, very different, and you get different content. It's not just the same. A lot of people will be like, okay, here's my YouTube clip, I'm going to paste it on Instagram. Here's my, and I try and tell a story with my Instagram content and create like a nice in different environment. So both of them are I'd say my top platforms that I love to produce content on. I don't just do it. I actually love it. And I think that's a big thing that I recommend for you guys, is to do what you love. If what you love is not, even doing things like this, like if you figure out, hey, we want to do news or we want to deliver it this way, like make sure you absolutely love the content you're producing, or you just won't stick to it. For a long time when I was building this up, I kept bouncing back and forth on what can get me more views. I got to do, because ultimately you don't want views, but you need views in order to do well and to get sponsorships to make it make sense for your life. but a lot of times I just kept having to pull myself back and say, like, what do I love to produce? I don't want to do this video that I think is going to get more views and rank and page rank and stuff, and people are going to search for it more. I want to do this, so constantly find myself pulling myself back into that, question, like, what do I love to do? So whatever you guys love to do, just keep doing it. What is your main, like, thing that you're doing? I'll be honest, I haven't checked out. I'll check out some of your content after this, but what is the main, like, focus of your channel or your brand? Is it just,
Well, like it's like kind of like a 50-50 split between getting the news out faster than like most of the main pages, but then also putting out like good series. That is another reason for someone to check you like out the page. So like we'll do a bunch of like hot takes every day. Usually we need to get back into those. We took like a little break after the draft, but we also post like rankings for fantasy and all that. And I mean, it's just like we try to have a nice feed. So I'll spend like I'm the editor, so I'll spend like a ton of time just making like for one post. Like I'll spend like hours per post. It's basically it.
yeah. Well, keep at it, and you guys will find your way. Not that you haven't already, but I just mean it'll start developing. It'll become clear what you want to do. Just keep at it. Who's gonna go to college? All of you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are you guys going to journalism, marketing?
I plan on going for sports management.
Okay.
I'm going for sports analytics probably.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Logan.
I don't
I don't
really know. I don't think me and Rory really know what we're gonna do.
I haven't decided yet.
Pick something applicable, if you can. Like something like business is so vague. It doesn't, you walk out and you're like, what do I do with this? Not that I'm saying to not go towards sports, because analytics would be good. That's kind of focused or whatever. But like a person with an engineering degree has a job waiting for them that no one else can go take from you without an engineering degree. Nursing, teaching, like even though teachers supposedly get paid bad, whatever, those jobs have something waiting for you. And you can literally say, I can have that job, you can't. Whereas business, it doesn't get you. So just be careful when you choose your degrees, guys. If I could go back in time, I got a psych degree, which I loved it. I love the content. It, helps me, I guess, day to day, but it literally, there was nothing waiting for you with that type of degree. So keep that in mind. Just a little piece of advice I wish somebody gave me, because, people walked out and had jobs waiting for them. And a job as a teacher is better than no job at all with a business degree.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for all the advice. I mean, I'll definitely be using your draft strategies this year. I like a lot of them. Everyone be sure to check them out, obviously. And yeah, that's about it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Peace.
Thank you.